My wife was on a video call with her friends, her voice carrying through the crack in the door. I wouldn't have stopped to listen, but I heard my name mentioned. "He thinks he's some kind of bedroom god," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "I swear, I deserve an Oscar for faking it all these years. The sounds I make, the things I say, he actually believes I'm satisfied." More laughter erupted as I stood there, blood rushing to my ears. 6 years of marriage reduced to a punchline for her friend's entertainment. "The best part is how proud he looks afterward," she continued. "Like he's accomplished something amazing. If only he knew." I quietly stepped back from the door. An ordinary man might have burst in, created a scene, demanded explanations. But that wasn't me. Not anymore. Something crystallized in that moment. A cold clarity I hadn't felt in years. I walked to our kitchen, poured myself a whiskey, and assessed the situation with calculated detachment. This wasn't just about sex. This was about respect, loyalty, and truth. She'd been performing not just in our bedroom, but in our entire marriage. The next morning, I acted completely normal. Kissed her goodbye as she left for work, smiled at her jokes, responded to her texts throughout the day. But behind my everyday facade, my mind was working, plotting, observing. Over dinner that night, I noticed things I'd been blind to before. The slight condescension in her tone when I spoke about work. The way she checked her phone when I was mid-sentence. The subtle eye roll when I suggested weekend plans. "Everything okay?" she asked, catching me studying her. "Perfect," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Just thinking about how interesting people can be when you really pay attention. She looked momentarily unsettled before returning to her usual performance. That's what our marriage had become, her show, with me as the oblivious audience. For the next week, I maintained the charade while quietly taking stock of our life together. I reviewed our finances, our property, our social connections. I began mentally untangling our lives while she remained blissfully unaware that the curtain had fallen on her performance. I didn't confront her immediately about what I'd heard. That would have been reactive, emotional, giving her the upper hand. Instead, I watched her perform her role as loving wife while I prepared for the final act of our marriage. The revelation had changed something fundamental within me. Not just about her, but about myself. I'd been playing a role too, the adoring, unquestioning husband who ignored disrespect in the name of keeping peace. That man was gone now. In his place stood someone who wouldn't tolerate lies, who wouldn't beg for genuine affection, who wouldn't compromise his dignity for anyone. My wife had no idea what was coming. She thought she was the one in control of this narrative. She thought I was too invested, too emotional, too weak to ever walk away. She had gravely miscalculated. As I watched her laugh at something on her phone, probably another conversation mocking me, I felt nothing but cold resolve. She wanted to perform? Fine. I would give her the role of a lifetime. Ex-wife. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of living with someone who had turned our intimate life into comedy material for her friends. Every kiss, every touch now felt contaminated by the knowledge that she'd later dissect and mock it all. I became a careful observer in my own home. When she thought I wasn't looking, I noticed how she'd immediately text after we'd been intimate. The timing was unmistakable. My performance review, delivered straight to her friends. One evening, I intentionally left my laptop open in our living room with a fake email draft visible about a business trip. As expected, the moment I stepped into the shower, she was at my computer. Privacy meant nothing to her. When I returned, she was exactly where I'd left her, scrolling through her phone, acting innocent. "Did you check my laptop?" I asked casually. "What? No, why would I do that?" The lie came easily to her, not a moment's hesitation. "Just asking." I smiled, adding another piece to the puzzle of our failing marriage. Later that week, I created an opportunity. I told her I'd be working late, but instead parked down the street and returned home quietly. Through the window, I saw her and 2 friends in our living room, wine glasses in hand, laughing hysterically as she stood up, apparently imitating me. The exaggerated thrusting motions and ridiculous facial expressions she made told me everything I needed to know about what, or who, was tonight's entertainment. I drove away without confronting them. Emotional outbursts wouldn't serve my purpose. Instead, I went to a quiet bar, ordered a drink, and finalized my strategy. The next day, I called a divorce attorney from my office. I didn't mention what I discovered, just that the marriage was irreparable. I wanted to understand my options before making any moves. The attorney laid everything out clearly: finances, property, timing. Knowledge was power, and I was accumulating both. At home, I began subtly documenting our finances, making copies of important papers, and securing my personal belongings. I transferred my portion of our joint savings to a private account. Nothing illegal, just protecting what was mine. I wasn't going to be left financially vulnerable when the hammer dropped. She noticed the change in me, but couldn't quite identify it. The distance I'd created wasn't dramatic enough to confront, just enough to make her uncertain. "Are you mad at me about something?" she finally asked after a week of my calculated detachment. "Not at all," I replied with practiced neutrality. "Just focused on some work projects. You seem different lately." "Do I?" "I feel exactly like myself. Perhaps more like myself than I had in years." She tried to bridge the growing gap with physical intimacy that night. I participated mechanically, watching her performance with new eyes. The moans, the flattery, the practiced movements, all fake, all for show. When she finished her act, I simply turned away and went to sleep, denying her the validation she sought. The next morning, her insecurity was palpable. She tried everything, making my favorite breakfast, suggesting weekend plans, even bringing up the possibility of a vacation. The desperation in her efforts to reconnect told me she sensed something slipping away. "I was thinking we could invite some friends over this weekend," she suggested over coffee. "Maybe have a cookout? It's been a while since we entertained." I knew exactly which friends she meant, her audience, her enablers. "Actually," I said, looking her directly in the eyes, "I think we should have a small dinner party instead. Very intimate. Just you, me, and your 3 closest friends." Something flickered across her face. Concern, perhaps even fear. "Okay, any special occasion?" I smiled, holding her gaze until she looked away. "Let's call it a revelation dinner. I've been doing some thinking about authenticity and honesty. I'd like to share my thoughts with the people you trust most." She agreed hesitantly, unaware that she was walking into the carefully crafted scene of her own undoing. The day of the dinner party arrived. I'd been methodical in my preparations, not just for the evening, but for everything that would follow. My attorney had the divorce papers ready. I'd secured a temporary apartment. My most important possessions and documents were already there. Financial accounts were separated. Nothing left to chance. She spent the day cleaning and cooking, unaware that this performance would be her last in our home. When she asked for help with preparations, I obliged without complaint. I wanted everything to be perfect for her grand finale. "You seem almost excited about tonight," she remarked, studying my face as I arranged wine glasses on the dining table. "I am," I replied honestly. "Some conversations are long overdue." She looked uneasy but continued with her preparations. Twice I caught her texting her friends, presumably reassuring them about the evening ahead. Little did they know what awaited them. As evening approached, I dressed with particular care: dark suit, crisp shirt, polished shoes. The mirror reflected a man transformed not by clothing, but by resolve. The uncertain, accommodating husband was gone. In his place stood someone who commanded respect, who set boundaries, who wouldn't tolerate disrespect. "You look different," she said when I emerged from our bedroom. "I feel different." The simplicity of my response clearly unsettled her. Her friends arrived in succession, the same women I'd seen through the window, laughing at her imitation of me. The same voices I'd heard on that video call weeks ago. They brought wine and false smiles, eyeing me with curiosity. My unusual formality had put them on edge. Dinner proceeded smoothly on the surface. I was the perfect host, attentive, charming, engaged. Under the table, my phone held everything I needed: screenshots of text conversations I'd recovered, audio clips from moments when they thought no one was listening. Technology had made it remarkably easy to gather evidence of betrayal. Throughout the meal, I noticed their exchanged glances, the subtle tension. They sensed something was off, but couldn't identify what. My wife grew increasingly nervous, drinking more than usual, laughing too loudly at unfunny comments. After dessert was served, I stood up and gently tapped my glass with a spoon. The table fell silent. "I'd like to propose a toast," I began, my voice steady and controlled. "To honesty, to authenticity, to showing people who you truly are rather than who you think they want you to be." Confused smiles spread around the table as they raised their glasses. "Speaking of authenticity," I continued, "I've been thinking a lot about performances lately. The roles we play for different audiences. The way we present ourselves versus who we truly are." My wife's smile faltered. One of her friends shifted uncomfortably in her seat. For instance, I said, making direct eye contact with each of them. Some people perform on stage, some on screen, and some, I turned to my wife, perform in the bedroom, then critique their co-stars' performance for their friends' entertainment. The silence that descended was absolute. My wife's face drained of color. Her friends froze, winced, looking anywhere but at me. I've discovered that I've been married to an aspiring actress all these years, I continued calmly. Someone who, in her own words, deserves an Oscar for faking it all these years. I removed my phone from my pocket and placed it on the table. I have the most interesting collection of conversations here. Text messages, audio clips, screenshots, all featuring the four of you discussing the most intimate details of my marriage, mocking me, laughing at my expense. One friend started to stand, mumbling an excuse to leave. Please stay, I said firmly. The evening's just getting interesting. My wife finally found her voice. You've been spying on me? On my private conversations? Interesting that's your concern, I replied, unmoved by her attempt to shift blame. Not the betrayal, not the mockery, but the fact that I discovered it. It was just talk. One friend interjected weakly. Women venting. It doesn't mean anything. If it doesn't mean anything, then you won't mind if I play some of these clips for everyone here. I responded, my finger hovering over the phone. So we can all laugh together at how meaningless it was. No one took me up on the offer. I turned back to my wife, whose eyes had filled with tears. Not tears of remorse, I noted, but of embarrassment and anger at being exposed. I filed for divorce yesterday, I said simply. My lawyer will contact yours tomorrow. I'll be staying elsewhere starting tonight. You have until the end of the month to decide where you'll be living next. The shock on their faces would have been satisfying if I'd still cared enough to enjoy it. The aftermath was predictable. She called and texted constantly for the first 3 days after I left. The messages evolved from anger. How dare you humiliate me in front of my friends? To bargaining. We can work through this. We just need to talk. To desperate pleading. Please come home. I'll do anything. I responded to none of them. Her friends tried reaching out too, attempting damage control, claiming they'd been misrepresented. I blocked their numbers without hesitation. These weren't people who deserved explanations or second chances. My temporary apartment was sparse but peaceful. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think without the constant performance surrounding me. No fake laughter, no forced conversations, no walking on eggshells. The silence was liberating. My attorney called with updates. She had hired her own lawyer, was contesting the financial terms, claiming emotional distress. I almost laughed at the irony. The documented evidence of her mockery and betrayal would make her claims of victimhood difficult to maintain. She's requesting a meeting, my attorney said. Says she wants to discuss reconciliation before things go further. Not interested, I replied without hesitation. Proceed as planned. 2 weeks after moving out, I returned to the house to collect more of my belongings while she was at work. The place already felt foreign to me, a stage set for a performance I'd walked out on. As I was loading boxes into my car, one of our neighbors approached. Rough time, huh? He said, helping me with a particularly heavy box. She told everyone you had some kind of breakdown. Said you've been acting crazy, making up stories. I set down the box I was carrying and looked at him directly. Did she mention mocking our intimate life to her friends for years? Or getting caught doing impressions of me for their entertainment? This awkward silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said, returning to my task. Some people will rewrite any narrative to avoid being the villain in their own story. He helped me finish loading in uncomfortable silence, then extended his hand. For what it's worth, I always thought you deserved better. I shook it, nodding once before driving away from my old life. The following week, my company's annual client dinner provided a welcome distraction. I hadn't planned to attend given the circumstances, but my boss specifically requested my presence for an important client meeting afterward. Professional obligations were a comfort, clear objectives, measurable outcomes, none of the deception that had characterized my marriage. I arrived early, exchanged pleasantries with colleagues, and was midway through a conversation with a potential client when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Turning around, I found myself face to face with her. "What are you doing here?" I asked, maintaining my composure despite the unwelcome surprise. "My firm was invited," she replied, her voice deliberately loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I had no idea you'd be here." A lie. She knew exactly where I'd be. Her company had no connection to this event. "We need to talk," she continued, placing her hand on my arm in a practiced gesture of intimacy. "Just 5 minutes. Please." Several colleagues were watching now, curiosity evident in their expressions. This was a performance for them, her playing the role of reasonable wife, me cast as the uncooperative husband. I gently removed her hand from my arm. "There's nothing to discuss that can't be handled through our attorneys." "Don't be like this," she said, her voice taking on the pleading tone I'd heard so many times. "Don't throw away 6 years over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I repeated, keeping my voice level despite the absurdity of her claim. "Is that what we're calling it now?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I made a mistake. People say stupid things they don't mean. You never gave me a chance to explain." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but calm clarity. "The problem isn't that you said those things. It's that you meant them enough to repeat them for months, to multiple people, behind my back. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice that revealed who you truly are." Her eyes darkened with anger as she realized her performance wasn't working. "You think you're so much better than me? So perfect? Let me tell everyone here about you." "Go ahead," I interrupted, my voice still calm, but carrying an edge that made her stop mid-sentence. "Show everyone exactly who you are. I'm not playing this game anymore." For a moment, I saw behind the mask, the calculation, the manipulation, the mounting desperation as she realized she'd lost control of the narrative. Then she turned and walked away, dignity in tatters despite her straight back and measured steps. A colleague approached cautiously. "Everything okay?" I straightened my tie, took a sip of my drink, and nodded. "Everything is exactly as it should be." 1 month into the separation, the divorce proceedings were moving forward despite her attempts to delay. My attorney reported that her legal team had suggested mediation, a transparent attempt to manipulate me face-to-face rather than through legal channels. "Not happening," I told him firmly. "Everything in writing, everything through proper channels." He nodded, respecting my decision. "The financials are nearly settled. The house will go on the market next week. You should receive the first disbursement shortly after." I had moved from my temporary apartment into a modern loft downtown. The space reflected my new mindset: clean lines, minimal clutter, nothing performative or for show. Everything served a purpose, everything authentic. At work, I'd received an unexpected promotion. My boss cited my newfound focus and decisiveness as key factors. Without the constant drain of a fraudulent relationship, I found myself excelling professionally in ways I hadn't anticipated. Projects that once seemed overwhelming now energized me. Decisions came more easily. My confidence was no longer undermined by constant subtle disrespect at home. I was having dinner alone at a steakhouse when a former mutual friend approached my table. "Mind if I join you?" he asked hesitantly. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. We exchanged pleasantries before he got to the point. "I heard about what happened," he said, discomfort evident in his expression. "She's been telling everyone a different version, but I wanted to hear your side." "I don't have a side to present," I replied, cutting into my steak. "I discovered the truth about my marriage and acted accordingly. That's all." He fidgeted with his napkin. "She showed up at our house last week. Had clearly been drinking. Started crying, saying you'd fabricated evidence against her, turned everyone against her." I continued eating without responding. "She's lost most of her friends," he continued. Apparently, the dinner party fallout was significant. 2 of the women's husbands found out what they'd been saying about them too. This was news to me, but I felt no satisfaction in it. "Actions have consequences. She's seeing a therapist now," he added, as if this might matter to me. "Says she's working through deep-seated issues that made her behave that way. She wants everyone to know she's changing." I set down my utensils and looked directly at him. "Why are you telling me this?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "She asked me to. Said if I ran into you, I should let you know how much she's suffering, how much she regrets everything." "So you're delivering a performance review on her suffering?" I observed with deliberate irony. "How fitting." He winced at the precision of the blow. "I just thought you should know." "Thank you for the information," I said neutrally. "But I've moved on." As he left, I realized it was true. I had moved on. The anger that initially fueled my decisive actions had transformed into something more valuable: clarity about what I would and wouldn't accept in my life moving forward. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday afternoon. I signed the papers in my attorney's office, feeling a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. Not just the weight of her betrayal, but the constant burden of trying to please someone who secretly despised me. My phone rang as I was leaving the building. Her number. After months of ignoring her calls, I decided to answer this final one. "It's done," I said by way of greeting. "I know," she replied, her voice unnaturally steady. "I just signed too." A moment of silence stretched between us. "I want you to know I'm sorry," she finally said. "Truly sorry. I was insecure and immature. I let my friends influence me. I know that's no excuse." "You're right," I interrupted calmly. "It's not." Another silence. "You humiliated me," she said, her voice hardening slightly. "In front of everyone. You planned it meticulously, calculated for maximum impact." "Yes." My simple acknowledgement seemed to throw her. She'd expected denial, perhaps, or justification. "You could have just talked to me," she tried again. "We could have worked through it." "There was nothing to work through," I replied. "You showed me who you were. I believed you." I could hear her breathing change, frustration mounting at her inability to control the conversation or extract the response she wanted. "So that's it?" she finally asked. 6 years just erased? "Not erased," I corrected her. "Completed." The story reached its natural conclusion. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked, and for the first time, I heard genuine fear in her voice. The fear of someone who had always defined themselves through others' perceptions, suddenly forced to stand alone. "That's not my concern anymore," I said, not unkindly, but with finality. "Goodbye." As I ended the call, I felt no regret, no second thoughts, no what-ifs. Just the quiet satisfaction of having respected myself enough to walk away from someone who didn't. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my new place, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled. My phone buzzed with a text notification. From her. "I truly did love you in my own way." I read it once, then deleted it without responding. Some performances didn't deserve an audience. 6 months after the divorce, my life had transformed beyond recognition. I'd been promoted again at work, bought a modern house in an upscale neighborhood, and reclaimed friendships that had faded during my marriage. More importantly, I'd reclaimed myself. The company holiday party was being held at a luxury hotel downtown. I arrived alone but not lonely, a distinction I'd come to appreciate. Throughout the evening, I connected with colleagues and clients, speaking with an authenticity and confidence that had once felt foreign to me. "You look well," my boss commented, clapping my shoulder. "Divorce clearly agrees with you." I smiled, not bothering to correct his oversimplification. It wasn't the divorce that agreed with me. It was the self-respect that came with refusing to accept disrespect. Near midnight, as the event was winding down, I felt a presence beside me at the bar. Even before turning, I knew who it was. The subtle scent of her perfume, once so familiar, now triggered nothing but mild curiosity. "You're a difficult man to find," she said, settling onto the bar stool next to mine. She looked different, thinner, more carefully put together, as if dressing for an important audition. "I haven't been hiding," I replied simply. She ordered a drink, shooting glances at me while the bartender prepared it. "You look good." "Thank you." I kept my response neutral, neither encouraging nor dismissing. "I'm seeing someone," she announced after a moment, watching carefully for my reaction. "He's a surgeon. Very successful." I nodded, genuinely uninterested in the details. "I hope you're happy." My lack of jealousy clearly disappointed her. She tried again. "I've done a lot of thinking since everything. A lot of therapy. I understand now why I behaved the way I did." "That's good," I said, finishing my drink and signaling for the check. "Aren't you going to ask me why?" she pressed. I turned to face her directly. "No." The simplicity of my response seemed to frustrate her. "I've changed," she insisted. "I've grown. The person who did those things, that's not who I am anymore." "I'm glad to hear it," I said sincerely. "Everyone deserves the chance to improve themselves." She inched closer. "Maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just to talk. As friends." I studied her face, the carefully composed expression of contrition, the calculated vulnerability in her eyes. The performance was polished, but that's all it was, another performance. "No," I said simply. "I don't think that would be beneficial for either of us." "Still punishing me?" she asked, a flash of the old bitterness breaking through her reformed facade. "Not at all," I replied calmly. "I've moved on. Completely. You should too." "Just like that?" she snapped. "After 6 years together?" I paid my bill and stood. "You know, the most valuable lesson from our marriage wasn't discovering your betrayal. It was realizing how much energy I wasted trying to earn genuine affection from someone incapable of providing it. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's not fair. I loved you. In my way. Your way wasn't love. I corrected her gently. It was performance. And I'm no longer interested in being your audience. A colleague approached, asking if I was joining the group heading to another venue. I nodded my agreement before turning back to her one final time. I sincerely wish you well, I said, meaning it. But my life no longer has a role for you. I walked away without waiting for a response, joining my colleagues by the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of her still at the bar, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Perhaps understanding, finally, that some exits are permanent. 2 weeks later, I received an envelope at my office. Inside was a handwritten letter from her. Pages of explanation, apology, self-reflection. At the bottom, a postscript. I truly did deserve that Oscar for my performance. But you deserve the truth. I read it once, acknowledging the small satisfaction of her admission, then filed it away. Not as a keepsake, but as the final chapter in a story I'd already moved beyond. That evening, I had a date, my first serious one since the divorce. Not a rebound or a distraction, but a genuine connection with someone who'd entered my life unexpectedly through a professional conference. Someone who valued authenticity over performance, substance over appearance. As I prepared for the evening, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me was someone I recognized now. Confident, self-assured, unwilling to accept anything less than genuine respect and affection. My phone buzzed with a text from my date, confirming our reservation. Nothing performative about it. Just simple, direct communication. Refreshingly real. I smiled, responding quickly before putting my phone away. The past had taught its lessons, but it no longer defined my expectations. I'd walked away from an Academy Award-winning performance to find something infinitely more valuable: authenticity. Some roles aren't worth playing, no matter how familiar the script. And some exits, however painful, lead exactly where you need to go.